Steve has a 40-year career in commercial art, and at the same time, he has exhibited fine art. Steve was born in London, Ontario, and attended several art technical institutions, including the Hickok Technical Institution, which he eventually worked for. Steve has had communication problems from early in his life. He told me that he couldn't talk comprehensively until he was 17. But to help overcome his communication problems, he has leveraged his art ability. So we'll share his art and some of Steve's ideas, and at the same time that Steve is talking, we're going to just be repeating a projection of his art on the screen behind him. Thank you.
Is that okay? Everybody can hear me? Very good. Very good. Like people ask me, like, what is it like to have autism? And there's similarities to everybody who has autism. It ranges from people that have withdrawal, they're withdrawn, and they have different sensory problems. They all experience life a little bit differently than everybody else. Thankfully, those are off. Those are flickering. An autistic person can perceive those flickerings, a stroboscopic effect, from ordinary fluorescent tubes that would be in Walmart or anywhere else. And that's why maybe you see kids that are brought with their parents, they have little meltdowns because of that. Sometimes autistics would rather wear a peak cap, like a baseball cap, to shield themselves from that kind of thing. Well, what is autism? Everybody go like this. You do this. Feel that? You feel all the energy just kind of flipping off like that. Isn't that nice? Well, a lot of autistic do that. That's a normal thing for them because they've always got so much energy pent up inside, and that is one of the issues. It's a biological thing. Some doctors, I met one last week, Dr. Nelson Manet. His work is mainly with biomedical and neurological, and actually looking at the physiognomy of anyone with autism. They'd have some common traits. Some of them would be a lesion on the amygdala or some other thing that's easily understood. I find that to be fascinating. I've never been examined myself that way. My diagnosis with Asperger's came late in life. My diagnosis came in the year 2006, and it was kind of fascinating how it happened. I was taking courses at BCC, paying out of my pocket, and people suggested me to go to the Office of Student with Disabilities and ask them about vocational rehabilitation. Well, I did that, and I was quite amazed. They put me through a lot of testing, and they determined that I had Asperger's syndrome, that I was a birth defect this way. Now, what's really interesting about my case, I have been with psychiatric treatment steadily all my life since 1970. So those were the grounds when they suggested I go to voc rehab. I had already had this long history. I found at an early age, at the age of 18, and this was after 1 year after I started to come out of my eggshell. I like the term of that. It's like a self-containment that you have. You live in both worlds. You live in a world of autism. Sometimes people call that hallucination, or your own world that you understand very, very well. And then there's the outside world that you have to deal with. That there's actually sort of an interface between them. I had an accident with fiberglass. I went to a special high school in London, Ontario, where you could major in art at the 10th grade level. And in Canada, they had channeled us from a very early age in recognition of our art skills. I was in traveling art shows, and the only one from my elementary school. I was in a scholastic shows, they call them the Scholastic Shows of Canada, from school system. And at the 10th grade level, I could major in art and learn about the vocabulary of images and the vocabulary of art. And some people ask, what is art? Art is cultural signposts, you might say. Art doesn't necessarily have to be pretty or beautiful, although that you may want to adorn your house or yourself. But art has always had a role with these kind of special individuals. Go back, imagine what it was like 30,000 years before our common era. There were individuals that were burly and big, and they could hunt or they could defend their clan. Then there was individuals that they weren't quite so brilliant necessarily, but they could go inside that cave and paint that image of that bison. And those existed like over centuries and centuries. You've seen the pictures of them where they'd be like carved and incised in bas-relief and then painted over again. These people would lead in a ceremony, usually very ritualistic. They were early in our history. The tribe of hunters would go inside, hurl their javelins or spears and any of their weapons at these things. There's always often pockmarks around them that we found. And that was a role of a shaman. The shaman was a person that, as you know, they're gifted spiritually somehow. They would know that at some point we have to leave this cave. We found another cave where there's also more forest and better, more deer to hunt, things like that, or an easier life. Shamans and artists were basically the same thing. And so we have a history of this. As tools and civilization developed with metallurgy, would carry the culture from one generation to another, would be these symbols, logos. We've seen them all. They could be steles or grave steles or monuments. These date back very early in our culture. It seems that in the northern hemisphere, in the far north, there are more incidents of Asperger's syndrome and autism for some reasons. I could go into that. I'll explain.